which is actually a tritone.
This is the rhythm that shook the world.
Oh, play it, James.
Swamp rock is one of the most distinct and soulful genres to come out of American music. It's this gritty blend of rock, blues, and country, and it's infused with the swampy, humid atmospheres of the South. It's all about hypnotic grooves, gritty guitars, and storytelling that pulls from the culture and the landscapes of Louisiana and the Mississippi Delta. The genre hit its peak in the late 60s and the early 70s with bands like Creedence Clearwater Revival, and they brought the swamp rock to the mainstream with their hits like Born on the Bayou, even though they were actually from California. But its roots run deep. The music was influenced by legends like Slim Harpo and Bo Diddley, and then in the twangy picking of people like James Burton and the funky fingerstyle of Jerry Reed, and then also the edgy guitar tones of pioneers like Link Wray. So let's get into it. So today we're going to go through a list of 10 swampy artists, and we're also going to look at some of their techniques and some of the theory behind how they actually made those sounds. So first up on the list is the kings of swamp rock themselves, Creedence Clearwater Revival. John Fogerty is probably one of the greatest rock singers of all time. But there were some distinctive things about the sound of Creedence Clearwater, and one of the things you can hear in a lot of their songs is the use of dominant seventh chords. And a dominant seventh chord is just basically like a seventh chord, but there's a mystery to the dominant seventh chord because they're basically like major chords, but within the chord is this flat seven sound, which is actually a tritone. And that sound right there in the middle of the chord is actually very dissonant sounding. And it's the distance between the major third of the chord and the flat seven. So dominant seventh chord is actually a major chord with a flat seven in it, but it has this dissonance in it that is really integral to the sound of swamp music. So you can hear that in that Born on the Bayou kind of riff, whereas that chord right there, it's that mysterious sound, and getting anything sounding swampy, you can use that chord. It's got the droning bass in it, and then that flat seven, and you can find those chords all over the guitar. So if you want to play swamp rock, start by kind of targeting those tritone, flat seven, dominant seven sounds, right? So for example, you know, a good way to play it is right here. If you play an E7 like that, you can take this little part of it here like this, and that gives you that sound, right? See how beautiful and swampy that is? So the next person on the list is Tony Joe White, and he's known for his classic Polk Salad Annie.
Like those for some folks that came up from Corpus Christi.
So that's a swamp rock classic, right? And, you know, one of the things that's cool about that song is it has another feature of the kind of swamp rock sound is these sliding double stops. And that cool gritty sound is really integral to swamp rock. Okay, third up on the list is Slim Harpo. And he influenced the sound of swamp rock a lot with blues tracks like the classic King Bee that was covered by loads of people. In fact, we did this on one of our records. So that song, King Bee, is just infused with so much swamp blues stuff. So one of the things is this little open E riff that's used in a lot of blues songs. It's this idea where you're So it's like kind of like a Delta blues sounding riff, kind of like a Lightning Hopkins riff or something like that. So basically, all you're doing is you're outlining an E chord, and then you're going to the minor third here in the bass, and you're kind of doing a nice bend on there. So that's an integral riff from Slim Harpo through to Jimi Hendrix. And that song also has this kind of cool effect, which you could easily miss. It's this kind of zoom sound, where you just kind of do this slide up and down the neck, right? All right, so next, a great exponent of the swamp sound is Bo Diddley.
This is the rhythm that shook the world.
That rhythm is so famous, it has its own name. Sometimes people call it the shave and a haircut 2 bits rhythm or the Bo Diddley rhythm. All right, next up we've got Jerry Reed, who had this cool, funky, kind of picking, swampy atmosphere that he did with tracks like Amos Moses. Check this out.
His name was Amos. Watch out, here comes Amos. Now Amos Moses was a kid, and he lived by himself in the swamp. He hunted alligator for living. He just knock him in the head with a stomp. Son, the Louisiana dog gonna get you, Amos.
Jerry Reed, one of the things that he would do is these kind of cool double stop runs, almost like kind of Chuck Berry, but he would like snap them and twang them like. So he'd play these little riffs where he'd be barring across 2 strings at the same time and kind of snapping the strings. And he'd use a thumb pick like that. He'd do a lot of that snapping sound, so. Another player who did a lot of snapping was the amazing James Burton. This is him playing with the Nelson Brothers.
Gone too long, play it, James.
So James Burton would play with a finger pick like this and a pick at the same time to get that chicken picking sound that he's famous for. Where you get that sound is to have a dead note and then a pick note with the finger pick. It's a great sound. All right, next up on the list, we've got Link Wray. So he's famous for the song Rumble. It was a song that was actually banned because it was thought to incite teenage violence, but it has this awesome sound. On the more laid-back side of things, we've got J.J. Cale. He's the guy that influenced people like Eric Clapton, so many people, Mark Knopfler, and he had this kind of laid-back, groovy style where it was kind of understated. He would just do really cool stuff, really tasteful, like. You know, and he'd always have these little rhythms, these kind of like boogie-woogie rhythm, but just a very cool groove. Like kind of lay down Sally style. Another player that's kind of a musician's musician, just like J.J. Cale, and is worth a mention, even though maybe it's not strictly speaking swamp rock, would be Robbie Robertson from the band. You know, I've got to confess, I've never really learned very many Robbie Robertson songs, but he's someone that is just a great person to listen to. And even like Eric Clapton talks about how when he's had a hard day gigging, playing in the stadiums, the place where he'll go to relax, he'll turn on an album by the band and just sit back with his headphones on and listen and soak it up. Amazing, tasteful playing. All right, so let's finish it off with the OG himself, Dale Hawkins. So he's the guy who directly influenced bands like CCR with that kind of swampy rockabilly sound, which would be like. Songs like Susie Q and that, you know, those songs, it's really simple, but it's basically got that kind of dead thumb, which is kind of like the Delta blues, and then these cool little memorable riffs based around the seventh chord, as we talked about earlier. All right, so that's just dipping our toes into the world of swamp rock. There's so many amazing players, so many amazing musicians. But if you've enjoyed this video, give us a subscribe and leave a comment. I'd love to hear who your favorite swamp rock guitar player is, or what your favorite swamp rock song is. So hopefully you'll have fun listening to some of these amazing artists. And remember, turn it up.